It's not a Joe Rogan podcast. It's just a normal one. So obviously, I just want to kind of go back to when you first started. Now, obviously, two tales to the story, really, isn't there? There's the first time and the second time. So take me back to the first time that you joined. Like, how come you and Amit joined, and like, tell us about that situation.
Me and Amit joined jointly as a couple because obviously, we'd come really overweight at this point and we just thought we needed to sort it out. So we were both on the journey, and I think we were like 50%, bought into it, and 50% thinking, I'm sure like the odd cheat's not going to make a difference. But that odd cheat probably was a little too often than we were supposed to have. And unfortunately, Amit then got quite unwell and his health deteriorated and he had to stop being on the journey. And then I kind of just joined the bandwagon and thought, oh, well, if he's not going to do it, maybe I should just step back as well. I can maintain what I've achieved from what I've learned. As a result, then we both stopped. But actually, it was quite a bad mistake on our part. I, in hindsight, should have carried on because I thought I had learned everything that I needed to, but actually I didn't. And that was where the failure was on my part.
Yeah. With that, what did you think you knew that you ended up not knowing between that phase? Because I think you went down to 53 and then back up 60 or something like that. So what was that 7 kilos of lessons?
I thought like Declan had taught me everything. In my mind, I was like, I can maintain this. I know what to do in the gym. Like I'd have a snapshot of my workouts and just carry on. And I knew what to eat because I had all the documents, all the swaps documents. But actually, I think there's so much more to just those two elements. It's just that mindset wasn't there at that time. I think I wasn't like fully drawn into the process, although I thought I was. And now when I look back, I thought that I wasn't actually nowhere near.
And then when you then joined the second time, what changed for you with that thought process? Did you focus on something else more particularly? Did you do that was different?
The second time round, we're like, okay, we've come out of COVID. I know I keep saying this, or people keep talking about COVID, but it was bloody ages ago. So I think, we should stop using COVID as an excuse. But during COVID, like mom lives with us, so she'd make the full shebang and I'd add like a sweet to it. And then we'd like all sit down at lunchtime and pick out and stuff. And then that kind of like carried on. Thankfully, Amit kind of came out of his health issues and he became quite overweight as well. And I was like skinny fat. I looked okay, but actually when I looked in the mirror, I was really unhappy with myself. So, and then Amit's like, you know what? I'm going to join Autonomy again. I'm going to reach out to Declan. And I was still 50-50. And then I'm like, you know what? Let me just do this because if we do it together, we'll motivate each other and it will work really well. And this time we have to make it work. So we reached out to Declan and we were like, we want to onboard again. And I think being through those health issues for Amit taught me to also look after myself and look after my well-being, because actually he was just under so many medications and the after effects of all those medications were just terrible. And there was one point where he was like to the doctors, you know what, F you lot, I'm not taking anything anymore. I'm going to live holistically and I'm going to do things a little bit differently for myself. And we kind of jumped back into Autonomy with that mindset. And here we are 1 year later where we've nearly reached Autonomy or have reached Autonomy.
That's crazy. And then over that, the onboarding process was literally, I think it was like 1 year ago, 7 days ago, the 15th of August, I think, or at the end of July was that you started again. So how much have you lost and like, what's that done for you?
I've lost about 9 kilos all in all. It's really been amazing because I've become more confident in myself. And I think the biggest thing for me is, I've always had the same wardrobe, but there were times where I was like only able to wear about a handful of things. And there was a time where I was just like, okay, I'm hanging out in these leggings and this like checked Primark shirt. And that was the only like nice thing I was able to wear sometimes. And I was like, this is getting really ridiculous. I think for me, being able to reach out into my wardrobe and actually wear all those clothes that I was just staring at for about 2 years is a huge thing for me. Before I'd go out and I'd be like wearing or trying on like about 5 outfits and I'd still walk out the house feeling really uncomfortable because I'd not be happy in what I'm wearing and the bed would be strewn full of clothes. Now I can just like literally open my wardrobe, pick something out, wear it, be really happy and walk out and my bed's actually tidy. Yeah, that's like a huge thing. I've not like bought, many clothes because I've lost those kilos. It's just me being able to wear what I've always had in my wardrobe and making use of all those nice dresses, not having to have like belly popping out on certain things. So yeah, I think it's been really amazing to just be able to do that again.
Yeah, no, it's really, really awesome. And then obviously to save money on clothes as well. So you can go back through and refresh. Hopefully, as that fashion does, it repeats itself apparently. So
yeah,
you can just get the old stuff out and then re-rinse them again. So you're not spending money on the next size up.
Yeah, exactly. And, more recently when I've like gone into Zara or River Island or any store, like I'm able to actually pick out really small sizes. Not that I want to like fit into an 8 or whatever, but I try a 10 and it's not fitting. And back in the day, like I'd be needing at least a 12. So, it's really good to be able to wear those small sizes again, and they fit really well and they are not tight. Yeah, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, super awesome. So through the process then, like tell me a little bit about like kind of what worked for you from a nutrition perspective. Like how was it set up with you, Amit, the family, and what really worked?
I love the swaps document. It's really versatile. So we're proper foodies in our house. We love going out to eat. We love trying new dishes. We're always entertaining, cooking for people. We were able to adapt because you can use the swaps document as like a core starter and then work around that. And, over the year, we've made some really great dishes. I never get bored. Like even now, like a year and a bit on, we kind of make a lot of dishes and use that swap document as a guide, so as to speak. And I tell people, like when I talk about autonomy, I said, you can literally eat anything. It's just you have to be mindful of the portion sizes and you have to measure. If you do that, then you're a winner. In terms of how it fitted in with the family, so as I said, Mum lives with us. She kind of just continued to cook for her and the kids, and we kind of did our own thing. And sometimes there'd be like 2 meals or 3 meals going on at the same time. But I kind of just had to let it be because we were on this journey, we were focused, and we just needed to do what we needed to do. And she was quite understanding of that, luckily. And I know that is quite difficult for a lot of people because parents are they get upset because they want you to eat the home cooked meal because it's nutritious, and they don't understand that you have to weigh everything out and portion control and that kind of thing. But it's been a really positive impact, I think, for us as a family because Mum's kind of seen the way we eat, and she's happy to, start using Frylight for some things as well. I've got 2 boys, and my oldest 13-year-old, he's actually resorted to looking online, and he's now put into ChatGPT a program for his nutrition. So he's printed it out and we stuck it on the fridge, and he's like wanting to stick to it and stuff. When I make my meal, he has a Declan meal, as we call them.
Absolutely
So
brilliant.
he's kind of like a junior autonomy, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then the other day, the little one pulled out the resistance bands, and he's like on a mission now. Every morning he stands in front of the mirror and he pulls the resistance bands, and he done a few minutes and he goes, "Mommy, do I have muscles now?" It was really cute. But, I think them seeing us has really made them aware of the importance of looking after yourself and eating well and working out. I'm really glad that they've kind of seen that themselves, and it's being instilled in them from a young age.
Yeah, because once they have that genuine interest, or they get to try that new ChatGPT diet, and they get to see the freedom that they've got to do that in the household, then later down the line when they want to try something different, or have other things, that they're not going to feel as you need to eat this, you need to do that, which means that they're going to feel like they've got options and that they're able to try something new if they want to, which is really, really important. And it's awesome. Normally all of that stuff comes through just like watching rather than telling, right? So the more you do it, the more that Amit does it, everyone gets involved, the more they just naturally do it. So it's awesome to see.
It is really good.
Obviously being the foodies that you are, so like how did you manage to incorporate the nice socials and the dinners out when you went outside of the house? What type of strategies would you use there?
I won't lie, there were some things that we kind of didn't go to initially because like when we first started the journey, we were like, it will be quite impactful if we go out to this restaurant because of XYZ. And like, I know that wasn't going to be a solution to everything because you can't just avoid life and socials because otherwise it will be a disaster. Initially we didn't go, but then when we started going out, we'd just look at the menu and pass it over to Declan and be like, okay, I think we should eat this. And then like he kind of gave his suggestions. And then when you go there, it's like, okay, you just have to trust the process. And I know everyone's having, I don't know, like loads of options and stuff. And you're there with your chicken breast and vegetables and like half a piece of naan bread or whatever. But it's not a permanent thing. It's just for that short period of time. And I think that's what kind of like just chugged us along, because even though you going out, you can still enjoy it, but just make the right decisions and the right options, because otherwise you're just going to fall into that trap where you're like, oh no, it's okay to have something that Declan didn't say. And then the next time you go, it's kind of like a domino effect. And I think with us, especially with me, like if I had gone out last night, I'm very adamant on bouncing back to the routine the next morning. I will not let it slip and be like, okay, last night I went to Pizza Express and you know what, I just feel like I want like a toasty this morning because, oh well, last night I had a pizza, so it should be okay. I never let that slip. So I always got back to routine. Even if I went out for like a lunch in the evening, I'd be back onto the plan. So I think for me, it was those random meals out were good treats. But then when I was back home, it was back to plan very religiously.
No, and it's really, as you said then, that kind of spur on being like, this is not forever. It's for a time and place to achieve something that you've not achieved before. We're limiting how much sacrifice you have to do, but it's like, it's the bare minimum, right? What your portion size is, maybe you go for a better choice, where you're at right now in your maintenance phase and learning more like about the forever side of it. Those choices will be different. Those varieties will be different. And like, you get to enjoy that now because of that extra work that you put in with the body that you wanted to. So it's just like sometimes a little bit of a necessary sacrifice at the least amount of sacrifices we could possibly have. Don't want to not go there. That's the way that you have to kind of portion things out to the best of your ability. And then and when it came to that, did you, outside of maybe the social side of things of being a foodie, what other things did you like kind of struggle with, or did you kind of learn to overcome during this process?
So there were times where, you're like, oh, I really could do with like a cream cake or a scone with like cream and jam. And, when I used to have those days, I'd reach out to Dec and he'd be like, have it, but just be aware of your weigh in tomorrow or maybe have it and then cut your dinner. And I remember really clearly, it was like in the height of summer and I text on the group saying, can I have an ice lolly? And you immediately responded saying, drink some water. It does the same thing.
Yeah, that's when I was in my arsehole phase. It's like I had about that was the point was I had like 50 of the same messages every day. I could hear the ice cream truck outside my house. I was like, everyone's going for it. So I have some water.
And I was just like, oh my god, I only want a rocket lolly. I didn't have it in the end. Just FYI. Yeah, and I think you can have, if you have a craving, have it, but then just bounce back to the routine, for your next meal, because that's where you can easily fall down. And to me, I think bouncing back to the routine was like the most crucial part of this process, because it kind of kept me in check. And then you go on the week, because if you have lots of hurdles, I think you kind of then keep falling down, and it's hard to then pick yourself up again and ride with the routine. Where if you just have one hiccup and go straight back to routine, it's easier to then carry on.
Yeah, that just incorporates it in. I guess it's more about that consistency element, isn't it? It's like, we have that thing, we make some adjustments for it if we need to, then you do the thing and then you're straight back on it. Sometimes they act as like psychological breaks as well. Like, this is not just a physical journey where your body is changing, it's also the mindset of discipline and saying no to a bunch of things and being focused. Sometimes they need that like weight to be lifted, and then as long as that continues the next day, then you're back into the zone again, sometimes even better.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've had that break, you've had your craving, and you're ready to go again.
Yeah, for sure. And then when it comes to like the accountability, I know you mentioned a few things about the messaging in the group. How was that for you when it comes to like the support, the accountability, the check-ins? Were they something that were an important process for you?
Yeah, for me, like, okay, check-in day, I always honor it. I always do my pictures, send Dec a voice note, do the form and everything. And then the daily check-ins, I know that he said to do them. And at the end of the day, it really is up to you whether you check in daily or not. But for me, I think providing that daily check-in was an accountability accountability thing. And I want Deck to know what I'm doing on a daily basis. Like if I've had a crappy day with work and I've not been able to do my 12K, I want him to know that. He'll probably respond and be like, oh, you know what? It's okay. Like we all have these crappy days at work where it's really busy. Just get back onto it the next day. And I know that. I want him to know that I'm trying my best, and I want him to know the reason why I've only done 8K that day. I always wanted him to know what was going on rather than just checking in once a week. Sometimes he'd just like heart my update, which I'd be like, okay, well, he's acknowledged it. And that for me was like a big thing. And even to this day, I do my daily check-ins. Last night, I went out to see one of my neighbor friends and we got back at like 11:30 and I had 2,000 steps to do and I jumped on the treadmill. I had to do my 12K before midnight and I just about managed, and I sent him my daily check-in like at 2 minutes to midnight or something, and I got my 12K. But I was just like, I think steps is one of my like non-negotiables. I have to like do them unless I've had a really shit day on my laptop where I've just been bashing on all day and I just can't. So yeah, in terms of the check-in and your question, I think, yeah, it's really important to communicate with your trainer, say what's going on.
Yeah,
because if you keep it in, they don't know what's going on with you. And I think that element's really important.
It's the biggest thing. Is like I really struggle sometimes to see it like other perspective when I'm like giving my feedback to somebody. It's like I forget how much detail they don't know, or how much they just see the numbers, or just see they don't know your feelings, they don't know your emotions, they don't know how bad your day's been. So sometimes when you actually say those things, the outcome is different, the strategy is different. So like if someone, like you said, you've had a crappy day, you've only done 8K steps, and you know this happened, and this is why I did it. Versus I only did 8K, and that was just a message. You'd be like, well, did you try? Did you not try? Like we just don't know. So you giving that context and communicating is like the most important part. I think we end up believing people are like mind readers because we're like, oh, they must know. That's a really, really good tip. And then with the steps, how did you structure your 12K across the day? Like, did you have a specific like pattern for it? Did you blast it all in one go?
So I primarily work at home and I'm in the loft, so I run up and down a lot. That kind of only gets me like a minimal of like 3,000 or whatever. But I go out. We've got a little dog, so we go walking with the dog quite a lot. But there were times where I used to struggle to get steps, especially in the winter. And, you know, those were like the early days. But then we invested in a treadmill. And I think that's the best thing we've done, because even if it's like 11:30, you can easily just jump on the treadmill and, you know, do your steps. So I don't do my steps all in one go. I vary it over the day and do it in little bursts. Sometimes, like if I just pop dinner in the oven and I put a timer on and then I just jump on the treadmill whilst it's getting done. So I kind of do like half an hour there, half an hour here, 20 minutes. And then, yeah, go out walking as well. So yeah, that's how I done my steps. And I think during the winter months, the treadmill comes in use and you appreciate it more. I think if you're strapped for space, the walking pads are really good as well. So we've got a walking pad for the office and a treadmill in the conservatory. So yeah, no excuse.
Yeah, no, not at all. Literally, if they were on too fast and you weren't taking notice, you'd be falling over them. But like, yeah, we love ours, and it's super, super like time and space efficient. And it's just for those moments whether you can't be bothered to leave the house, or the weather's unfavourable, or you've literally only got that short space of time where you can just nip on and nip off. And what you said there about like, sounds to me like you've just made all of the minutes count. So instead of staying in front of the kitchen, you know, with the bits and bobs, you've been like, right, whilst that's on a timer, I know I've got 20 minutes, let me go and do that because I've got enough. Like kind of, you mentioned before about from a food perspective, you got creative and you were able to find recipes. I think that's the same psychology there too. It's like, I'm going to find a way to do it as opposed to not. So that's awesome. That's really, really cool. And then is there anything that you're learning now that you're in maintenance, you've done your photo shoot, you've had a really good time, is there anything that's different for you now? Like, how's that changed?
I've really enjoyed the journey, and we continue to eat per plan. We continue to do everything that we were doing whilst we were doing the one-to-one coaching. And I think it's just taught me to kind of appreciate your health, because I think health is wealth these days. Without health, you are, I don't want to say nothing, but you know, it's a big part of your well-being. I think it's just really important to look after yourself. And when you go to the gym, you know, like make every session count, make every rep count, just give it your best, really.
Yeah. And what's happened with your food? Has it increased during this maintenance phase? Have you had more flexibility with your intake? Like, how's that changed for you?
During maintenance, I'm on like 3 meals times 500 calories plus the add-ons. But I've decided to do a 300 breakfast and then 2 500 meals and cut my add-on out, just because I don't need a 500 calorie breakfast, because because I'm quite happy to have a bagel and a fruit or katian chai or the yogurt and the berries with the 2 pieces of chocolate. So those are like my 3 go-to 300 calorie breakfasts. And I'm quite happy and I can sustain myself on that. And it just gives me a buffer then for like the weekend if I want to have like a little dessert pot or whatever. And that's exactly what I did last week. I had 300 calorie breakfast all week. And then on Saturday night, I had a little tiramisu pot after dinner. And actually, my weight went down the next morning. And it was amazing because it just showed that, you know, I cut and then I had a little treat and actually my weight still went down. And, you know, cutting that breakfast is my choice. And it doesn't mean that every weekend I'll have a dessert. It might be that I have like a drink or 2 at the weekend because I felt like I've earned it. And if I feel like I want an add-on, if I'm, you know, watching a movie with the kids or something, then I'll have some popcorn. And by the way, we only eat proper corn now. So thank you. I've spent a shed load of money on proper corn. And I said to my son the other day in Morrison's, I'm like, oh, why don't you buy the cinema one? And he goes, no, I want proper corn because it's better.
To be honest, they are the godsend. There is obviously you've got like the popcorn, all that kind of stuff. Then you've got the Halo Top ice cream. Like it cost me a fortune in low calorie, high expense goods, but they keep you on track. But like, I love what you said there, and that's like ultimately like a good blend of lifestyle, right? Where you're like, I'm doing the structure, I'm doing what I need to do, but then when those evenings come, those weekends come where we have these particular things, you've made room for them. So it's like I guess it's a proactive thing where you're like, I'm going to save a bit. And it's like, not that you need to do that now with credit cards and all that type of stuff, but in the olden days, it used to be, you know, save a bunch of money, you know, spend it on a thing. And I think that's a really important foundation to maintenance, is that you're always saving before you spend, as opposed to spending and then saving. Where too many people are doing tabby with their fat, as opposed to doing the good old fashioned days of saving the money first. So that's really, really cool. And that's always a good thing, because you're finding now your balance of like where lifestyle is and where like structure is, which is really awesome. For most people, dieting phase is super structured, super organized, no to very manual things. And then that blend in, you just find your sweet spot, whether it is the little tiramisu pots or the ice cream or a few drinks. And then if you do tend to have, or you want to go for those bigger events and bigger days, you again know how to deal with them too. It's a really good, perfect like strategy there. I like it. In terms for you, like you mentioned the first time that you did it with us, you thought that you had the skills to kind of do it by yourself, versus now, like what would you say is like the skills that you've learned the second time round that you know that this will be something that you can continue doing far after Autonomy?
So yeah, I think just managing different types of food, because back in the day I think we'd just like stick to the swap documents really religiously and not realize that there was a whole world out there that you could still have, but you know, you just need to work it out. I think now we can have whatever we want to, but you just need to work it into your calories. And I think that's like the difference now, because if you want something, then have it, you know, but just work it into your calories. And if you get a smaller portion, then that's what it is, because after you work it out, after measuring and everything. So
yeah, for sure. From an exercise perspective or like future, like what are the goals now that you're fitting into all of the stuff in your wardrobe? What are you aspiring and pushing towards now, do you think?
I just discussed this with Dec the other day, and he said to me, what is your next step in terms of fitness goals? And I said, well, you know, I mean, I've not got a beach body and I'm not like supermodel perfect, but I'd like to work on like my abs and maybe my legs. So that's like my next goal. And he's going to rejig my workouts to focus on those areas. I think I'm happy with what I see in the mirror.
That's good. And have you ever had a goal of like looking like beach body ready or whatever that means nowadays? But like, have you ever had that goal? Is that just like recently you're like, oh, that's possible? I'm curious. Is that new for you?
Yeah, I mean, I never thought I would be what I am now. And I I kept saying to him, oh, you know, it's just in my DNA. That's how I'm built. I don't think I could ever be like this. Or he kept telling me, well, that's shit, because it's not in your DNA kind of thing. Yeah, I think you've just got to believe in yourself that you can actually do it, and, you know, put your mind to it and you'll get there.
Yeah, and that's a good goal to work towards. You've got like the top box ticked off, which is wardrobe. I'm happy with what I've done. I'm happy with the goals. And then now that sprinkling of extra, you know, sauce is like, oh, let's see what we can do. See where we can take this. And I think that's always a really good place to be, because
it's almost like a bonus.
That's about everything's up from here. It's not like I expect a chiseled six pack and anything below that is, or anything not that is not good. hard. Whereas like you're like tick, 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 let's go and have a go at this. And actually you're more likely to enjoy the process of your day to day and your week to week and month to month, which then lends to more consistency because you're not expecting to be somewhere. You're happy that you're moving forward towards it.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. And just probably final question is just like, what would you say like one tip that you do on a day-to-day basis, whether it's with like your routine, your consistency, maybe it's back on the steps again, but what's one thing that you wish that every single person that starts a fat loss journey does? Like, what is your one thing that you would be like, you have to do this one thing, or the one thing that you tell your friends when they ask you about your own journey?
Yeah, believe in the process and be consistent. Yeah, I think that's like a huge thing. And, you know, whenever I talk to people about autonomy, I say that I have like 3 things which I say to them. I said, it's an investment in money, it's an investment in time, and it's an investment in your mindset, because you have to change your mindset in order to do this and believe in the process. I mean, you know, there were times where I'd step on the scale and I'd be like, shit, man, this thing's not moved for like days. And then all of a sudden you get a big drop and you're like, oh, this is good. It's working. Yeah, I think consistency is really key. And even though I'm on maintenance, for me, I still have that thing where you have to be consistent. And I have this thing in the gym. I don't let the weights defeat me. Even if I'm struggling on a rep, I make sure I finish because I'm not letting iron defeat me.
Yeah, it's a good way to look at it. I've learned the hard way sometimes where I was like, I tried to pick a fight with too big iron. I was like, oh, that's not moving.
Yeah.
So that was really, really useful. Thank you so much for popping on and having a little chat. And obviously we're going to see that next version of you in terms of Beachbody ready, whatever that looks like. You got another year until it's summertime, or unless you go away on holiday. So there'll be plenty of time to get that in. Have you got any holidays booked?
No, we went away in April and the boys were like, oh, we don't want to get on a plane. So I was like,